All right, Dave, we can get going.
All right, thanks, Justin. Welcome everybody to a meeting of the Northern Middlesex Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm David Muller, Secretary Jamie Kessler here. Justin, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Okay. So Acting Secretary and CEO of MassDOT, Jamie Tesler.
David Muller, I'm here for Jamie.
Okay. MassDOT Highway Administrator, Jonathan Gulliver.
Justin Frank Szynski, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Okay. Andrew Delarier, NIMCOG Chair. I don't see him. NIMCOG MPO Representative, Pat Wojcik.
Here.
LRTA Board Chair, Tom Baumel.
Here.
LRTA MPO Representative, Kevin O'Connor.
Present.
And Wall City Council Representative to the MPO, Dan Rourke. I do not see. That is everyone.
Excellent. Can you put the agenda up?
Yes.
Thanks, Justin. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 28th meeting. Can I get a motion and a second from an MPO member to approve the minutes? And please state your name for the record.
So moved, Tom Baumel.
Is there a second?
Second, Frank Szynski.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any questions, changes, corrections? Seeing none. Justin, please call the roll.
Okay, David Muller,
Yes.
Frank Szynski,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Tom Baumel,
Yes.
Kevin O'Connor.
Abstained.
Thank you.
That motion carries. What's next on the agenda? Next is a staff report of TIP projects. Is Connie here?
I am here.
When you're ready, Connie.
Okay, so the bids were opened on the Andover-Tewksbury Highway lighting rehab at the intersection of 93 and 495. Coviello is the apparent low bidder. We're still waiting for a contract award and notice to proceed. The other projects that we're keeping an eye on in 2021 is Tewksbury, which is the price now is very close to the TIP price. And I'm not exactly sure, maybe Frank has some insight on what happened with the price because the contract cost is still pretty high, but maybe we're covering it a different way. And Dunstable, which I do have an update on. Dunstable, the ENF environmental notification form and the NOI were filed. Pre-construction notice was sent to Army Corps. The highway plans were approved for acquisition in April, the end of April. There was a section 106 of no adverse effect that was sent to the Mass Historic Commission in April 23rd. The town still needs to file an Article 97, but the town meeting did approve to provide the mitigation land for that Article 97 and to establish the layout. So it's still considered high risk and we still keep an eye on it. Other than that, things are moving along. There are a couple of different changes in prices and like Beaver Brook is now at 75, the Beaver Brook Bridge in Westford. And other than that, there's one new project that came in that is of note is some bridge superstructure and substructure repairs along 495. The bridge in Lowell is Boylston Street over 495. And that should be advertised this winter. So it should be in construction next summer. Are there any questions I'm willing to take?
Any questions for Connie? Seeing and hearing none. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Are there any public comments at this time? Seeing and hearing none, if you want to comment during the meeting, please raise your hand and we will call on you. Next up is the draft TIP possible endorsement. Justin?
Okay. So last month's meeting, we presented the proposed draft federal fiscal year 2022 to 2026 transportation improvement program to everyone here. And we voted to release the draft tip for a 21-day public comment period, which ended last Friday. So on your screen, and I sent this out earlier today, is the summary of the comments received. And I wanted to just review each of them here this afternoon before we consider endorsement of the draft tip. So we received two sets of comments, one from Federal Highway and one from Mass DOT. So just wanted to run through what we were provided by Federal Highway first. So bear with me, I'm going to scroll through the draft tip document. So the first comment that we received is was to make sure the document's 508 compliant, it's readable, make sure all the graphics are readable, and make sure you include alternate text so this document can be read by people with disabilities. So we're in the process of updating everything, making sure everything is alt text and it is readable. And so the second comment was basically to cite the inclusion of COVID-19 discussion and CARES Act on page 1 is basically just good addition, useful context for the tip, just based on what's been happening over the last year, basically since last March. The third comment on page 2 was basically just to remove 2 planning factors from the national goal area. This list right here is a list of the federal goal areas, and we accidentally included planning factors in with that. So we've just removed that from that table right there, and that's this comment right here. The next comment was basically just to cite that is a good connection that we've put in here that connects the regional transportation plan, as well as activities of the UPWP with our tip. The next group of comments were on the performance measure and target section. Basically, this is the narrative that's basically they say it's outdated, and we need to update the data to 2020 based on the mid performance review, and talk about how it was decided to keep the targets as is for pavement and for bridge condition. And this just goes along with that comment. The current conditions, we had it in 2017. We just need to update those current conditions to 2020. The targets are not changing, so we're not changing any of that. The next set of comments that we received from Federal Highway, it's the same thing. This is for system performance measures and targets. This is travel time reliability. This is excessive delay. These are just the system performance targets that we just need to update to current conditions. And this is, this is 2017 numbers. So we'll update them to 2020. And forgive me for scrolling through this. It's kind of hard with this Acrobat version here. The next set of comments that came under their public participation, where Federal Highway had a question as to whether or not all social media comments were considered formal comments, and how we make this decision on what to include from social media. This is something that we have in there. We have not received any kind of real formal type comments in social media on the tip, but it's something that we need to think about going forward as we provide more social media content. Federal Highway suggested that we include this a discussion of this during our public participation plan update, and that is something we're planning to do in the fall. You know, with COVID-19, the pandemic, and the move to virtual public engagement, we've had to change a lot of how we do things. So we need to update our public participation plan. And this is included, we'll talk about this in the UPWP as well. It's a UPWP task to update it. And so we're going to address this in the fall as part of our public participation plan update, and you'll see probably more information in the next tip cycle. Let's see here. This is just a small comment just to include the date of the public meeting. So we're including the date is May 12th. We hosted a public meeting to hear comments on the draft tip. The next two comments were questions on confirmation of whether or not moving a project a year forward in the tip constitutes an amendment or adjustment. So we reviewed this section, and basically it's kind of an outdated, that's an outdated table. It's kind of an outdated section. So we're updating this section to include highway and transit amendments, adjustment scenarios based on MassDOT's policy, and you'll see that with the new tip. And this comment was just citing the fact that we added a graph basically showing our tip programming, our projects that we put into the tip, and how they're categorized by our long-range plan investment program, which we did as recommendations for the RTP back in 2020. So it's basically a categorization of tip projects and how each tip project works towards the goals outlined in the RTP. And this comment, this was just a sentence that had not been updated. This is kind of a it needs to be updated to 2012 to 2026 for environmental justice areas, and so we made that change to that section under regional equity. And the next comment, we actually, I know this is a really nice map here, map 1 of tip projects in environmental justice areas. We liked it so much we put it in twice. So we're removing the second map 1 and installing map 2, which is federal fiscal year 2012 to 2025. So it's the more historical project map. So made that change as well. And let's see here. No changes to any of the tip project programming, so that's a good thing. Oops, went right past it. So this comment, you see, it's not required, but Federal Highway felt that it might be useful to share, basically talk more about each of the regionally significant transportation projects that we have listed here, which includes, excuse me, Middlesex 3 in Bedford and Billerica, or Middlesex Turnpike Phase 3, excuse me, the I-495 Adeline project, the Route 36 interchange project, and of course the Rourke Bridge. So it is our thinking that we'll probably expand this little section to include more information on each of the projects, and as we develop the tip in next year. And then let's see, one more comment. And this comment is just Federal Highway acknowledging that we addressed one of their comments from last year. We just added this table here, which is basically all of the TIP projects that are programmed in this document, and their corresponding RTP, long range plan, investment program. And this is just the table that we use to develop that graph that I talked about earlier. So those are the comments from Federal Highway. And the second set of comments came from MassDOT, and basically they're just a rehash of what I've just talked about for Federal Highway. The MassDOT wants us to clarify the amendment adjustment comment that was given by Federal Highway, which we talked about, and then to talk about the performance measure conditions that were outdated, and to make sure those were up to date. So these are all the comments that we received. I can take any questions on any of them you may have, or basically the program or projects haven't changed. We're here today. Consider voting to endorse the document with our response.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions from the members for Justin? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the tip as presented today with all the changes Justin outlined? And please state your name when you make the motion.
So moved, Kevin O'Connor.
Second, Pat Wojcik.
Motion has been made and seconded. Justin, please call the roll.
Okay, David Muller,
Yes.
Frank Szynski.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Andrew Delartier is here now, so Andrew.
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Tom Bommel,
Yes.
Kevin O'Connor.
Yes.
Hey, that's everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the UPWP.
Okay. Okay, so at our last meeting, we presented the budget, we presented the tasks for our next work program, which begins October 1st, runs through September 2022. And since then, we've taken those tasks, we developed a draft document, and we sent a copy of that out to you last week, along with this executive summary that you see for your review. So like I mentioned last month, the UPWP, it's the MPO's work programs for the staff. It's basically lists all of the different activities that are undertaken by staff. And it is federally funded, Federal Highway and FTA through contracts with MassDOT and a contract with the LRTA. And so you see here, in the executive summary, the budget for this year, $959,850, which is a decrease of about $25,000 from our current work program. So I just wanted to point out, this is the table of contents for the UPWP. And I just want to just talk about what is included in the UPWP. It's basically, we want to talk about, in the introduction, we talk about what the UPWP is, and some of the things that are affecting what we do, things like COVID-19. And we also want to look at, we want to make sure our activities are designed to address federal and state goals, as well as regional goals that are outlined in the RTP. So we have a section on each of the federal goals, state goals, state programs, as well as connections with the RTP in the document. And we want to also include a section on public participation process for the UPWP. It's very similar to what we do with the TIP. It follows the MPO endorsed public participation plan, which we plan to update, and it is included under task 1.3 of our UPWP to update it to reflect a more virtual public involvement process and things that go along with that, things that we've done since basically March of 2020. We just want to reflect that in our plan. So other sections within the document that we've included, updates on our current UPWP tasks. So this section here on updates on UPWP tasks, it's basically a kind of a progress report on what has been done during federal fiscal year 2021 through, I know 2021 isn't over, so it's basically through basically the beginning of May when we were writing that section of the document. And then you get into the different tasks for federal fiscal year 2022, things that, and we've talked about this, most of the tasks ongoing. There's, the 4 different task sections. Excuse me, I'm going fast here. First category being the management and support of the planning process. These are things that we do, like development of the UPWP, development of the TIP we just talked about, our public participation process, and regional equity work. And the second grouping is more of a technical support, data collection grouping. It's where we do our traffic counting, which we'll talk about. Dave Tilton will talk about here in a few minutes. Our GIS work, our work with monitoring the transit system, and all of the performance measure work that I talk a lot about in the TIP and other documents. The third section is more of a systems management, more of our regional transportation planning. So it includes things like pavement management, our safety work, excuse me, congestion management work, things like our local technical assistance task, which we provide ongoing assistance based on requests from our communities, things like bicycle and pedestrian planning. We're going to put in the second year of our TIP project review study, which is basically a before and after study to see, to measure the effectiveness of how we spend our federal transportation dollars. So things like that. And then the last category is our ongoing transportation planning, which is a lot of our transit planning work that we do with the LRTA and our coordination between transportation and economic development projects in the region. So that's kind of what we have in the document in a nutshell. We fully programmed out our funding for 2022. We've developed a draft document, and we're here today just to consider releasing the draft federal fiscal year 2022 UPWP for a 21-day public comment period.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin? Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to release this for a 21-day public review process? And please state your name for the record when you make the motion.
So moved, Tom Bommel.
Second, Pat Wojcik.
Motion has been made and seconded. Justin, please call the roll.
Hey, David Muller,
Yes.
Frank Szynski,
Yes.
Andrew Delaria,
Aye.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Tom Bommel,
Yes.
and Kevin O'Connor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next presentation is the 2020 traffic volume report.
Hi, I'm David Tilton, Transportation Planner here at Northern Middlesex Council of Government. I'm here today to talk about the 2020 Northern Middlesex Regional Traffic Volume Report and to talk about how the events of 2020 impacted traffic in our communities in the region. One of the biggest challenges to collecting and analyzing traffic data in 2020 was the lack of traffic through a good portion of the year. The abnormally low traffic volumes presented a unique challenge to traffic modeling and analysis. As a result, Mass DOT suspended traffic counting throughout the spring of 2020. In late June, we decided to do a modified traffic counting program. We picked 12 locations throughout the region that were commuting or business or freight corridors. We chose these 12 locations because we had historical counts already, and we could compare the historical data that we had to what we were seeing for data in 2020. From the end of June through October, we placed a traffic count at each of these locations once a month and recorded our findings. On the left-hand side, we have the repeating traffic count locations. We tried to get a good overall representation of the region, so we weren't leaving any one area untouched. Then we have the most recent count prior and the most recent count prior ADT, the year in the ADT here. And then we have the 5 months or so of data that we collected. And on the right side, we have the change between the most recent count and the most recent count prior to 2020 and the most recent count in 2020. And we can see that we saw a dramatic drop in traffic volume throughout the region in this time. Some areas saw a more dramatic drop than others. Some bounced back quicker than others. We are currently in the process of recounting these 12 locations. We're going to do it in the spring and in the fall of this season to see how far we've come from these counts that we got last year. For the next slide, this is more of showing how the events of 2020 impacted the highways in our region. The top slide is 495 south of Route 3 in Chelmsford in 2020. We can see the dramatic drop in volume in February that hit its lowest point in April, more than a 50% reduction before starting to climb back up through the spring and summer months, before plateauing and then dropping again in the fall throughout the winter as COVID cases rose. Down below is the same location in 2021. We saw it start to go up steadily in February and has been increasing through March and April. We're hoping these trends will continue throughout the year. For the next slide, we have Route 3 for 2020 and 2021. This is Route 3 at Chelmsford Town Line in Billerica. Once again, we see the drop in late winter, early spring, even though this one dropped much more dramatically in March. But still found its lowest point in April before starting to slowly climb out of the hole in the spring and the summer months, before dropping again in the fall and winter as the cases rose. In 2021, we see the same steady increase in traffic through January, February, March, and April of this year. The Mass DOT Mobility Dashboard is saying that statewide traffic is down 2 to 23% from where it was in 2019 for April 2019. The last slide shows our heavy vehicle on selected roadways pre and during the pandemic. These are counts that we had heavy vehicle information for, volumes and percent for before the pandemic, and that we got counts during the pandemic. There was every roadway went up in the percent of heavy vehicles, and we found this was due to passenger cars, the volume of passenger cars dropping dramatically, and delivery trucks such as FedEx, Amazon, landscaping trucks taking the place of a lot of those passengers. We saw a lot more volume of especially delivery trucks in the first spring and summer months of 2020. So this report has been posted on the NIMCOG website. If anyone would like a copy, you can feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or if you'd like a copy of this report. I can take any questions now if anyone has any.
Any questions from the members? Very good report. I don't have any questions. It shows exactly what I chose, but it's really well done and really well presented. Any questions from anybody? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Next up, I believe, is the LRTA DBE goals presentation.
Hold on one second.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Chris Curry. I'm the planner with NIMCOG and work with the LRTA. I just want to give you a quick run through. This is just informational about our DB goal. Every 3 years, the LRTA goes out and has to set a new DB goal. And so I shortened up the presentation I did for a contractor meeting a couple weeks ago. Okay, Justin, go next slide. So basically, what we do is we look at, over the next 3 years, we identify projects and procurements that will likely take place by the LRTA, and identify them by the North American Industrial Classification Code, NICS code. And then we identify the businesses by those NICS codes within our county collection area. And we look at the counties of Middlesex, Suffolk, Essex, and Hillsborough, New Hampshire as our primary procurement area for services. And then from there we go and with use of the Massachusetts Supplier Diversity Resources UCP, as well as the Mass DOT, which is a UCP information, we identify certified disadvantaged businesses within those same NICS codes. Okay, Justin, next slide. So basically, what I have laid out here are the codes and items that we will be looking at. At this point, I've already gone through and identified through the county business information, all the businesses. You'll see it on the slide. And I've started working on the DBs because it's a little bit more difficult through the state website. But we'll be doing everything from basic concrete contract, tire purchases, and then there are the two bigger items that are the ITS. We're procuring automatic passenger counters for our 50 bus fleet in 3 years, actually. And we'll be looking at bus lifts. And since those are our specialty items, we're not looking just within our 4 counties. We'll be looking nationwide for those. Okay, next. So from there, again, we look at if there's a certain amount of spending, that's going to be a higher amount of federal dollars on a certain NICS area code, then we will weigh the numbers and adjust our DB percentage based on that. So it can be a simple math, but then again, we have to wait if the numbers are different. If you flip to our next page, Justin. So again, what we will do, and after we do the weighting, we look at our past goal performance, and the last 3 DB goals that we set were 5.6 last time around, 6.16, and then 4.75. So you can see it changes based on what we are procuring over that 3-year period. Okay, next, Justin. So we have a timeline for the feds. We have to have a goal set by June 17th, which is 45 days prior to the due date. July 2nd, we have to have the DB goal published in general circulation, minority-based media, and trade publications. And finally, the DB goal is due for August 1st. I think that wraps up. So any questions you have? Again, this is informational purpose only, but we are well on our way to developing the goal for this coming 3-year period.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the members?
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. Next item on the agenda is other business. Is there any other business to come before the MPO at this time? Derek Schuster.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to share that there's a virtual public meeting on the capital investment plan at 6 p.m. this evening for the Northern Middlesex and Merrimack Valley regions. You can visit mass.gov/CIP for meeting links and additional information I also just copied and pasted this announcement in the chat field. Thank you.
Eric? Chris Timmel?
Yes, hi everyone. I just wanted to provide a quick update on related to certification review. So we held certification review for the MPO about a year ago, certified, I should say conditionally certified on June 9th of last year, pending a couple corrective actions. So I just want to provide an update that those corrective actions have been addressed. And so we wanted to formally certify the MPO, which is good through June 9th of 2024. And just as a reminder, those corrective actions, one was related to an update to the MOU, which was recently executed, as you recall, was endorsed and executed in April. And then the other one was related to the Nashua UZA agreement, which Northern Middlesex MPO is a part of, and worked with the MPO, the national plan partners to complete that this past December. So I just want to provide the update and appreciate the work to address those corrective actions. So thanks very much and congratulations.
Excellent job, Justin and Beverly and all the team. I believe Frank Szynski, do you have something you want to comment on today?
I did not. Retirement? Sorry. Yes, I do. I just wanted that Ronnie Raphael will be retiring in June. Will be her last MPO meeting that she'll be in attendance. Thank her for her 37 years, closely with Connie over 36 of those years, and she's certainly been a pleasure. I know everyone did send her off with a little notice that the MPOs could also catch up with her offline after this meeting, just to thank her for all her to everybody, and this will be stepping in the last couple of years, so he'll be old and Brian and I will be done, but we certainly will.
Thank you, Frank. Now, I had a little bit of trouble hearing Frank because of his volume control issue, but just so you know, Connie's retiring after 37 years at MassDOT. Connie Raphael, I believe this is her last MPO meeting, and I'm sure the MPO shares my sadness, but also, you know, it's been great working with Connie, and she's always been a resource for all of us, and has been always really good at her job and really nice to work with.
Thank you all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Connie, Kevin O'Connor, it's been a pleasure working with you all of these years. And I've learned an awful lot from you as well as Frank. And I appreciate all the patience you've taken all of these years to explain all the minutiae that a lot of us who were new at the time didn't understand. All the best in your future years.
Thank you all. I really appreciate working with you all. It's been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to retirement though.
Good for you.
Connie, you want to tell us who your replacement is?
Oh, Tim Paris will be my replacement, but you can always contact Frank or Brian Fallon.
Thank you, Connie. And enjoy your retirement, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Justin, when's our next meeting? Not that Connie cares, but.
You're gonna make me look it up. Okay.
Justin, I think it's June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Oh, look at that.
Right,
Yep. All right.
Before we adjourn, I have just one quick, I think it's a quick question.
Yep.
I don't know if there's an answer, but I have the question. So I went through the stiff yesterday and searching for the Rourke Bridge to see if it was in there anywhere and did not find it. And I'm wondering, given the timeframes that have been outlined at the public meetings for the project, what the plan is going forward. I know that the discussion has been around doing this as a design build project, but I'm assuming that there would still be federal dollars involved, perhaps. And the time frame that has been put out there has been within the time frame of the STIP. So I'm wondering what the intent is in terms of the funding of the project.
And you're right, I do not have an answer today, but I will find out. And I will give the PO an answer next month.
Thank you.
Okay? Other questions or comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when you make the motion.
So moved, Pat Wojcik.
Second, Tom Bummel.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.